I would like to prepare Angela Wangeshi, who will be presenting next. She'll be presenting on behalf of Byron Ochola, the Trade Justice and Economic Inclusion Lead for TISA. So let's give Angela Wangeshi a round of applause as she comes on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, happy to see bright faces, economically empowered women. Yeah, we continue tapping ourselves at the back, right? Yeah, good job. Yeah, I am Angela Wangeshi. I work with the Institute for Social Accountability, that is TISA, where we focus on good governance and accountability. I believe my colleagues were here before, so we know what TISA is all about. But more to that, we work with women, especially in informal trade. And I can see them here in the room. Hi. Yeah, happy to see you. Yeah, so today, as we talk about women empowerment, as TISA, we some time back did a study. We do a lot of that because advocacy needs to be backed up with evidence, with data. And so in 2023, late 2023, we did a study, and our focus was on informal trade. We focused on Nairobi County because we believe that whatever we found out is exactly what is happening in the country. And so if you're able to get the projection, okay, I see it is up there. So our study was titled Small Biz, Big Tax. I think the title speaks for itself. And so, like I mentioned, it was an experience of MSMEs, informal traders in Nairobi County. And the reason we focused on informal trade is because when you look at the chart, you can see what it means globally in Africa and in Kenya. So what you see in blue is the informal sector. So that is the size of the informal sector. So you can see how big it is. Globally, it is 60%. In Africa, it is 90%. And in Kenya, it is 83%. So it's a very big sector, and that's why we felt it was very important. It's like the backbone of our economy. And especially now, as we are speaking here, I am sure most of us, we may be employed, but we also run some other, businesses on the side. So that makes even probably this percentage even higher. And so, why women, youth, and PWDs? Again, when you look at the numbers, when you look at in Africa, women, youth, and PWDs, they take up 74% of the proportion of that composition in the informal sector. So you can imagine the numbers we are talking about. Look at Kenya, 66%. So the conversation we are having here today about women empowerment, informal sector is the backbone. And so we felt that looking at the experiences of this category of people would help us get a picture of what are their experiences, how does it look like, and what do we need to do to improve or to ensure that they enjoy the economic rights. Our good PS here has just said here that these rights are important, and it is good that we concentrate on them. So when we talk about accountability, tax justice is a big conversation. Next slide. And so in our work, we focus a lot on economic justice, but tax is a big player in that. I'm sure we all know, for example, the reason we have our government running is because of our taxes. But then we know very well that the government does not have its own money. So it is taxpayers' money. So anytime we talk about economic rights, tax justice is a very big component. So when we talk about tax justice, we look at how progressive is our tax, how transparent. So when we talk about transparency, what are the rules? Are they clear? Do we understand? And then the efficiency. So how do they collect the taxes? So, and then how fair? I'm sure, especially in Kenya, we have had this conversation about fairness or unfairness of our tax system. So why do we feel that it is not fair? Is everyone paying their fair share of taxes? Or is this tax burden being carried by a very small proportion of people, but then it has to serve all of us as Kenyans? So when we talk about accountability and tax justice, these are the aspects that we look at. And this is what we were looking at even in our study. And even in our work, we look at these 4 issues. So if we're able to say that these have been achieved, then we can say that we have achieved tax justice. And just to pose the question in the room, when you look at that, how far are we? Are we there? Are we getting there? Are we on our way there? What score can you give us? Is it a 10%? Is it a 20%? So when you talk tax justice, this is it. And not just in the trade or informal sector, generally. So when you talk about our taxes as Kenyan, how progressive, how transparent, how efficient, and how fair they are. So we identified a few gaps, and these are, when we talk about fair and equitable taxation, this is what promotes economic growth. And so we found out that the Kenya's tax system is very yes, and unfair. And so, because I mentioned we focused on the informal sector, the reason that is as it is because the reliance on indirect taxes, and this accounted for 62% of the taxes that KRA collects in 1 year. So we were looking at 2021, 2022 data, but I can assure you, this data has not changed from 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. It might even be worse. So when you talk about indirect taxes, VAT alone accounted for about 42% of the total revenue. So you can see the imbalances. And so the reason we took out these studies because we wanted to find out what were the lived experiences of our youth, women, and PWDs in the informal sector, what were the legislations. We also looked at best practices and the reforms that needed to be taken. We went through the lived experiences. My friend helping me run the slides. Lived experiences. We found out that there were a few issues that came out. One was double taxation. There was a lot of double taxation. There was complex tax requirements. There was lack of understanding due to lack of formal education. And then there was harassment, including GBV. So I'm sure when we talk about harassment, we see how Kanjo, for instance, how they treat our traders. We know most of our informal traders are not probably gone to school, or their levels of education are a bit wanting. So this understanding is also a big problem. So we looked at the taxes that applied to MSMEs. There was turnover tax that was at 3%. We all know VAT again. So this was at 16% for turnover exceeding 5 million. And then there was corporate income tax. Those were just taxes that apply to MSMEs. But I also want us to look at other taxes. Look at, next slide. Look at that list. How many are those? So that these are taxes that our MSMEs pay. From single business permits, from parking fees. So the list is so long, and that is why our title was Small Biz and Big Taxes. So I just want quickly to go to the good practices and what we found out. So what was happening elsewhere. So for example, in Ghana, there was tax credit management where enterprises can pay reduced amount on a tax liability. So you pay, it's like lipa pole pole. The same as Rwanda. So the business trading license fees, and then they also had electronic filing system, increasing efficiency. So there's no kanjo, there's no, and then in India, there was concession tax, allowing reduction of 25% from 30%. So again, you see what that does. I think in our case, it is the opposite. They are going up. So what the implications are, especially on the gender issues, one is reducing so through implementation of an effective tax system, this is how we can address these issues. So one is reducing the burden of informal taxes. Again, recognizing and valuing women's work. I think our PS has talked everything about it. And then addressing the gender gap. So we know the pay is very different, what men and women get in the informal trade. And then tax education and support. Because probably they've not had an opportunity to go to school. This can help. And then addressing gender-based violence. I think this is a big, big issue. Not just in informal trade, but just across. And so we realized that we really need to address these issues. We need to look at MSMEs and what is happening. And we need to focus more on these lived experiences. So what did we recommend? So we had a few recommendations, both at national and county level. It's unfortunate that our PS has left, but I'm sure this can always get to the duty bearers. So we have both at national and county level. So we need to deepen the tax base. So let's just, most of our tax is, you tax those who are in the system. So you end up taxing them more and more. So how about we deepen this base? Then we diversify these tax sources. So we just don't get taxes from VAT. So what other sources can we get? And then we need incentives for MSMEs, because we know there are big corporations getting incentives. So what about the MSMEs? And then we provide tax education, and then effective filing procedures and harmonization. That is on national level. On county level, we need safeguarding policies, and that ensures that they are safeguarded, how it is collected, how they are handled, and then reviewing the licenses and levies. There are counties that have incorporated these taxes into one. So I think that can very helpful. Then digitization of the licenses and payments, and supporting them to be compliant. They need a lot of support, they need to understand, and then to improve the county-to-county layers on taxation. I'm sure those who do business inter-counties, they know the experiences that they do have. So for the sake of advocacy, this is what needs to be done. So there's what the government needs to do, but what else can we do? So we need to be active citizens. We need to talk about these issues. We need to be very proactive. This is one of the ways that we are being active citizens, and this should continue. And then we need to engage stakeholders regularly. So we engage both duty bearers, the MSMEs, and all the stakeholders involved. And for civil society organizations, we need to continue creating awareness and also advocate for tax justice. Because we have seen there's a lot of unfairness and inequity. And then, of course, the oversight. Let us not just sit and wait for things to happen. We can join hands, amplify our voices so that we get to have these things done. So I hope that this forum helps us see these issues from that lens and feel empowered and feel that we have what it takes, but we also need to join hands and we need to work together. I would like to stop at that. Thank you very much for your time.
Let's give a round of applause to my namesake, Angela Wangeshi, Program Officer of TISA. Thank you so much.